We're live, we're live, we're live. It's Friday. Hey, thanks everybody for jumping on and coming back each and every week. We got William in Liverpool staying up late. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for staying up late. Craig, good day. Back at you. It's noon in his area of Australia. Steve, what's up? Ricky and John, what's up? Peter from Sydney, good day. Dennis from Arkansas, right on. What's up? And Rusty from Jersey Red, New Jersey. What's up? What's up? Danny from Arkansas. Great to see you. Jay, what's up? Good to see you. Andy from Florida. Right on. Chad. Excellent, excellent. Jody won. It's Friday. Right on. Getting close to Christmas, right? Harry, what's up? Scotland, 1 a.m. late in Scotland. Thanks for staying up late. Zane, what's up? It's going good. It's going good. Had a pretty busy week. And we made it. All right. James, what's up? Syracuse, if I could talk. Sam, good day from the Gold Coast in Australia. Right on, right on. Awesome. And Surov, welcome, welcome. Well, welcome everybody. If you're joining us for the first time, expand the description. There's a link to the tabs. It'll take you to a printout of the tabs, a PDF file of the tabs. Jim Gregory, what's up? Excellent, Rich. New Yorker in Beijing. All right. Good morning. Good morning. And Richard from Massachusetts. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks for joining everybody. King 50, of course, North Nevada. All right. Got a good turnout tonight. Hopefully you get something out of these little workout examples, exercises, that kind of thing. Jeff, what's up? Hey. As always, we start these off with a little bit of a sort of chromatic workout, warm-up kind of thing. Ray, what's up? Thank you. Doing well. All right. We always do some sort of a workout variation on the same sort of theme. This one is in groups of 3. Jerry, what's up? I'm not sure if it's Gary or Jerry. I think it's Jerry. What's up? West Coast Canada. My home for several years back in the 90s and 2000s. Good to hear from you. Sri Lanka, Aranda, what's up? 6:30. Thanks for getting up early. King 50 got the Bossa Nova exercise last week. Good going. Right on. Nice work. Love to hear it. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so let's get started. Exercise 1, as always, just getting a warm up, just a basic mechanical exercise to get the fingers going. This one, like I said, is in a group. Sort of think of it in groups of 3. So with our down up picking, which is what we always do in this exercise, you want to keep your down ups nice and consistent regardless of when you're crossing the strings. Okay. In this case, you want to sort of think about every 2 groups of 3, because then it sort of resets back to a downstroke. Merry Christmas, Jazz House. What's up? HH. Thanks for the kind words. I'm glad you're here. Igor, what's up, Mexico City? Good to see you again. All right. So we're starting here. If you have a look, I'm going sort of 2 bars at a time, but you can expand this across all the strings. So I'm just going to play the first 2 bars of this warm-up. Sounds like this. Okay. And of course, the idea is once we get that pattern, we want to continue up the strings. What's up, James? Good to see you. And Surov, love from India. Excellent. I love that. Ricky, are you miking or running through a processor like a Helix? I've actually got Fractal Axe Effects down here that's running into my podcast microphone, which what I'm using for streaming. I've got this little Samson microphone, desktop microphone that has an extra instrument input in it. So if I run out of the Axe Effects into that, you're getting that. Should be getting that guitar signal. I know I kind of lost it for a couple of weeks and sort of fixed it up recently, last couple of weeks. So hopefully you guys are hearing the guitar loud and clear. All right, Melissa, what's up? Good evening. Alonzo from Northern Virginia. Awesome. Let's break this down a little bit. See what we're doing. We're starting basically index finger, 4th fret, going 1 fret per finger to the 7th fret with your pinky. And we're starting out with a group of 3 notes, which is the middle, index, middle. And then we're going to move to ring, middle, ring. And then it's going to be pinky, ring, pinky. And then we're going to cross strings and go index, pinky, index. So that's the pattern across each string. So and then you can start over on the next string, right? Then start on the next string. Okay, so you see I'm expanding this exercise because I didn't tab the next strings, right? Start here. Okay? So yeah, sort of like a spider exercise, right? We're coming backwards and forwards. And the challenge here is, you know, we're not just going straight up like we usually would, which is a classic warm-up exercise and highly recommend it just to get the fingers moving. Here's something with a little added complexity. You're gonna have to, you're gonna have to burn it in your fingers a little bit, right? Just to get the pattern right. There's sort of like, you sort of get into the rhythm of it and you can start to move a little bit faster with it, okay? And go all the way up. And then the next two bars, what I'm doing is moving up a fret and coming down in the same sequence. So if you check it out, I'm starting on a downstroke, 7th fret of the high string. That's going to be my ring finger going to the pinky, back to the ring. And then I'm going to go middle finger, ring, middle. And then index, middle, index. And then finally index, pinky on the lower string, index up top, right? And then follow that down. Then you're going to move up one fret and then you can go back up. Start that, do that for a couple minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, right? It's a little bit tricky at first, but just go slow with it. Even better if you go with a metronome, right? And you want to lock each of those 3 picks because this is sort of a groups of 3. So you want to lock every cluster of 3 notes with 1 click, right? So it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, click. And it's kind of challenging because you've got groups of 3, so that means your picking kind of goes, it flips on the next group of 3, okay? And also you're going to be changing strings back and forth a little bit. You don't just move on to the next string. You're kind of going A string, low string, A string, and then doing the A string for a while. You get what I'm saying. There's a little more meat to this warm-up exercise, but no less useful, hopefully. What's up? I saw love the Les Paul. Rusty, what's up? Thank you. I just swapped out the plastics for black, kind of digging all the black on gold look. And I'm digging the look of it. It's kind of a little bit different, right? You don't see too many of those. They're definitely out there, but definitely the factory sort of choice for the plastics is the cream, which I don't mind at all, but I like the black a little bit better. So I went for it, swapped it out. All right, Erica, what's up? Thanks for joining us. As always. All right, that's exercise 1. Always a good warm-up, right? And just a little bit higher on the difficulty scale than usual. Doug Aldridge style. All right, I love Doug. All right, let's get into just some strumming. Exercise 2. I'll just kind of play through this. You might recognize it. So what we're going for. So let's break it down a little bit. What's cool about this one, I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, about hitting some of these open position chords, F, C, A minor 7, and G, but doing so with sort of the pinky up top, okay? And in fact, you've got the pinky on the 3rd fret of the high string added on to all of these chords, which really ties the whole chord progression together. You're starting with an F chord, third fret of the D, second fret of the G, first fret of the B. And then you've got that G note added onto it, which gives it, it's an F add 9 sound. So it's sort of like a sus. Elias, what's up? Thanks for joining. Okay, just a little bit fancier of a chord than just a straight F, right? Add that G onto it. And then what happens is you can just sort of pivot your fingers here to a C chord while still keeping that pinky up top. Right? So you've got your ring and your middle finger just moving. It's exactly the same shape. You're just moving down a string set, and your index finger doesn't even have to move. Okay, so now I've got a full C major chord on there, right? Now the strumming pattern has a little layer of interesting. What's up, Mark? Good to see you as well. Excellent. Oh, there you go, Chad. I totally get that. You got to go with what you're comfortable with. No problem. Just talking about making mods on a guitar, right? You don't want to mess anything up. So we're strumming eighth notes, right? If you have a look at the staff above the tab, right? We've got 4 clusters of notes with one flag connecting them. That's your tip off that's going to be eighth notes. So we're going to be thinking in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and in this case, the downstrokes on the count, upstrokes on the ands in between. Okay, so we're starting with a down, up, down, and then on that second upstroke, that's when you make that chord change to the C, right? So down, up, down, up. And then what happens is you hold that, right? So the next downstroke, you don't actually strike the strings. You let it ring out and pick up that chord on the next up, down, up. So that's a little bit of a syncopation. This is a very common chord strum that I'm sure we've done many times before. All right, a little bit slower so you can see what's going on. What's up, Pat? One more time, a little bit slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. All right, so I still want to, I say this every week, so I know that it's probably getting tiring to a lot of the people that tune in, but you got to keep this motion going. That's the only way to keep nice, steady time, right? You see how I'm nice and relaxed, and even when I'm not striking the strings, I'm doing that downstroke locked in with the beat. Okay. Let's look at the second bar. Same thing. Still my pinky is planted and I'm going to an A minor 7 open chord. Open A string, second fret of the D, open G, and still got the first fret on the B string. So not moving these fingers, right? And then again, it's a down, up, down, and I'm going to switch chords. Final chord on that upstroke in the second bar of exercise 2. We're going to this open G chord. This is the one where third fret of the low string is your root, but that X means that I'm curling my finger around to put some flesh on the A string so it doesn't ring out. If I have too much of a curl, it muddies up the chord because you've got that A string ringing out, okay? So you want to just make sure that the pad of your finger is muting that A string, but not the D string. You still want the D, G, B string. And of course, we still have our pinky on the third fret of the high string. So that second bar, you put it together. Down, up, down, down. Put it together slowly. Let's get into a little more detail on this because there's some things here that are a little bit subtle that you kind of have to think about a little bit to make it as clean sounding as possible. So when I'm strumming the F chord, I only want from the D string up to ring, right? So what if I've got a wide strum? Okay, I'm using some tricks on my fretting hand to make sure that the low E and the A string are not going to ring out even if I strike them, right? And what I'm doing is I'm using the ring finger on the D string 3rd fret. I'm just positioning it so that there's a little bit of flesh on the A string. And that causes it to fret out and not sound. And then you can see my thumb wrapped around the top, and it doesn't have to be all the way, you know, like that, right? In fact, too much, you'll fret a note, right? You don't want to do that. But you can have it just barely over the top doing that, okay? Another thing to do is just to practice strumming those 4 strings. That's another technique that's really good to know, so that you're not always relying on the muting, right? So I might take a couple minutes and go, let's just practice a simple strum just from the D string up to the top string, back and forth. Right? Now I'm going to have to watch what I'm doing at first, because you have to make sure that you're just going from the D string up. But I promise you, with lots of repetition and paying attention to that kind of thing, eventually you can do that and not even have to look, okay? You'll just know what to do. You'll feel it, position and the muscles and all that stuff, okay? So it's a combination of all of that that makes it a little crisper, a little bit more smooth, right? Just a few things to think about there. So you know, same thing on the A minor 7, okay? I don't know if I bring my, I think I bring my thumb up there just to make sure. So I think that's a great little exercise there, and a pretty cool song. If anyone's identified it yet, maybe not. Alrighty, right, y'all with me? Chad, I can't get my ring finger to do the double duty. I've always just strummed the 4 strings cleanly. Cleanly. That's great. That's great. But you can be intentional and practice that. Okay. If you just take 5 minutes out of your practice routine and just try to position that finger just a little bit higher on the note, so that a little bit of flesh is just leaking over on that A string. If you're just sort of rubbed up against it a little bit. And just practice doing that. The way that I practice doing that is on and off, right? Grab the chord, check it, off. Do it again, right? And just do the repetition of that for a couple minutes. Just do it a couple minutes a day in your practice routine, right? Jazz House got it, Learning to Fly. That's the song. Free falling, good guess. It's actually what here. One of these days you'll learn to fly. You're going to. I like it. That's the tune. Good ear, everybody. All right, moving on. Exercise 3, a little arpeggiating exercise using some cool chord voicings in D minor. So what you're going to want to do is start with the D minor shape. That's going to be the open D string, 2nd fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B, and the 1st fret of the high string. Okay? And we're going to arpeggiate, which means that we are picking the notes in the chord one at a time, in time, right? If you look up again, we've got each note has a single flag on it, so that's 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's what we're going for, letting everything ring out as we go through. Second bar. Cool little chord right here. It's a B flat 6 with no 5th in the chord. So you've got the 1st fret of the A string, that's your B flat, open D, open G, 3rd fret of the B string. So you got 2 Ds in there, which are the major 3rd of the B flat major. When you add the G, that gives you the 6. Okay, in relation to the B flat. And there's no 5th in the chord, which is totally okay. You know, sometimes you just go with chord shapes and you go with interesting sounding chords, right? It has a really cool sound to it. And then, see, once again, I've got my, I'm going to have my pinky anchored on the 3rd fret of the B string, right? It's going to be part of the D minor chord. And then when I move to the 1st fret of the A string, I've still got that pinky on the D note, 3rd fret of the B. And then I'm going to use my ring and then middle to grab the 3rd fret of the A, 2nd fret of the D onto that. Still got my pinky down. And that gives you the C add 9 chord. There's another great chord. So you put it together. Very moody, melancholy sound, right? D minor, the saddest of all keys, I believe. Right? Cool, cool. So a great one to practice with the metronome because it's straight 8th notes, right? So you can work on doing, every second pick right on the click, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, click, 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 click. Right? Right on, Jim. You got it. Love the tap. All right, exercise 4. Triads, as always, got to do some triads. Oh, let's go back a bit. This is a good question. John asking about alternate picking. Not generally on something like this, although for an exercise, alternate picking is a really good exercise on something like this because you're switching your pick direction and moving each string at a time. Let's see if I can do that. That's tough. Alternate picking is tough, but it's actually a worthwhile exercise to get that. But generally speaking, on arpeggiating like this, you really kind of want to go in the direction of the strings. And, there's sort of a gray area when you get up to the top and then you turn around. You could kind of go either way with the picking, right? Like I'm doing all down. And what I tend to, for some reason, I do like a double upstroke on the top string because I'm going to come back down. But you don't have to. You could do a straight down and then straight back up because there's 2 picks on the high string, and then just do all down on these ones. Or what I like to do on the second bar, I would go down, 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 up, down, 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 up. Okay. So there's not one way to approach the picking on something like this. You just kind of try to have to find what you feel like the most natural is for you, because there's certainly not one suggested way to do it. Jazz House, I know this is not what you're covering right now, but what does A/ on tab mean? Whereabouts do you mean exactly? What does the A/ mean? If you can be more specific, I'm happy to answer that. Not sure what you're referring to exactly. All right, so we were going to move on to exercise 4. Triads, syncopated strums. Love triads, right? You know your triad shapes. Can't recommend them enough. And let's just, for the first part of this exercise, let's just stay on that A triad, which is the 3 notes on the top 3 strings of the A major bar chord root 6, right? These 3 notes are all you need to make an A major. A slash on the tabulature. Can you give me an example in my exercise, in my handout, exactly a slash on the tabulature, a slide? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking later on. If there's a slash there, that means a slide between notes. If it's in the actual name of a chord, that could be a piano chord, although I don't really have any of those this time in this particular episode. So I'm not sure exactly, but I think probably slide, right? This one, that one. We're getting to that, okay? 3 notes that make up A major, right? I've got an A up top, E, C sharp. Those are 3 notes, the root, third, and fifth. That makes up A major, okay? So we can play those. They're great. Triad chords are great chords to play, particularly when there's lots of instrumentation or lots of things going on in sort of on a song, right? If there's lots of instruments, if there's keyboards, if there's other guitars, a lot of times it's great for a guitar to just kind of slot themselves in a little bit and play economically instead of playing just big old bar chords, right? And dominating a big part of the sound. This sounds a lot more focused, right? Okay, Jazz House. I saw it. We wish you a Merry Christmas. Well, I'm thinking probably most likely that's a piano chord or a slash chord. So, for example, if you see a F/G, okay, that will mean that that's an F major with a G in the bass. The slash basically, it goes chord slash bass note. It's probably that, okay? So have a look on your tablature or your sheet music, and hopefully that's what it is. I'm thinking that's what it is. It's something like We Wish You a Merry Christmas, right? All right. Let's check out this rhythm because there's a really specific rhythm here with some rests. Where can I get a workbook for the sessions? Daryl, if you expand the description below the video, there's a link to a Google Doc PDF where I've got the tabs for this particular session tonight. And click on it, download it, do all that great stuff. Let's play this again. Okay, classic sort of festive strum pattern if you get it up fast. Right, that kind of thing. All right, so let's break it down a little bit. We've got quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Okay? So you've got 3 downstrokes that are quarter notes. There's no flag on it, so they're right on the count. 1, 2, 3, which is why we're doing downstrokes. And then the fourth one, you've got like sort of this symbol that looks like a 7 a little bit, and then an 8th note, right? Because it's got a flag. Now that 7 is a rest, and it's got 1 flag attached to it, right? That's kind of what makes it a 7-ish looking symbol. And so we're coming in on the and of 4. So on the 4th beat, we're not strumming, but on the and of 4, we're coming in with an upstroke. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then you're seeing that we're continuing the upstrokes into the next bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3, 4. Okay, a little bit tricky. So we're going to go a little bit slower. That's what we're going for on this one, okay? Get into the 3rd bar, we're going to switch chords. So sticking with our triads, I've got a D major triad, 7th fret of the G and B string, 5th fret of the high string. Now this is another triad shape on this string set for a major chord. This time the root's the lowest note. I've got a D on the 7th fret of the G, major 3rd on the 7th fret of the B, and the 5th up top, okay? Gonna do 3 downstrokes on that one, and then change chords for the next bit of strums. So this is going to be 7th fret of the G, 9th fret of the B, 10th fret of the high string. This is outlining an E dominant 7th chord. Okay, sounds a little dissonant. Just kind of by itself, it sounds a little bit weird, right? Because you've got an octave. You've got this D octave with a G sharp note. Those are just 2 notes out of what would normally be a 4-note chord to make E7, E dominant 7th. Okay, so in this case, we're sort of implying that with the chord shape. But it makes a lot more sense when you throw it all together into the chord progression. You'll sort of hear the sound of it. So here we go. Kind of hear that a little bit? Cool exercise here, just showing off some triad shapes. Technically that E7, the group of 3 notes, that's not really a triad because I've got an octave in there, which means that I've got the same note twice. So that's not really a triad. And even an E7, right, has got 4 notes in it. So you can't truly play an E7 as a triad. It has to be a 4-note chord. So what I'm doing is I am implying that chord with just 3 notes, okay? So it's sort of an implied chord. And this happens a lot with extended chords on the guitar because you run out of fingers to be able to play all the notes in the chord that are required. Some of those jazz chords get really complex. There's lots of notes that you can choose to play in some of those extended chords. And a lot of times what we do is just imply those chords, which I just choosing 2 or 3 notes out of the chord and playing, you know, sort of that, what's the word I'm looking for? That version of the chord, I guess. There's a better word for it. It escapes me at this moment. Are we good? Are we all right? Excellent. Dominant 7th blues riff. Really simple blues riff that can add a lot. And because it's a blues riff, of course you can play it in a blues, but the blues is borrowed in rock and country and many other genres as well. R&B. And so you can use this in a lot of different genres, right? Very simple idea. So the first part of this, I'm going to play in C, okay? Okay, so that's the actual rhythm part. In context, it might be something like this. If I'm playing a blues in C, right? 4, 4. Okay? And so where that comes from is playing the power chord, C power chord, which is just root and 5th, 8th fret of the low string, 10th fret of the A string. And what you're doing is changing the note on the A string. I'm going from the 5th in the chord to the 6th, 2 frets up, and then the flat 7, another fret up, while keeping the root going. Okay, so this is a bit of a stretch, which is why I moved up the fretboard a little bit to sort of help that out a little bit. This, if you're down in F, I mean, you're really stretching to get that, right? So at least up here, hopefully you can somewhat get this. Although on an acoustic might still be a little tough. Now you hear this sound a lot, okay? It's based off the power chord, and you're you know, a lot of times you've got that blues alternating between the 5th and the 6th in the chord. Right? In this case, it's really cool to add that extra note, which ends up being the flat 7, because there's an actual flat 7 in the C7 chord, right? That's one of the notes that makes it a dominant 7th. So very common sound. I think you can kind of recognize that. You could do something else, right? You take this exercise and just go. Right? I'm playing it as a shuffle, right? Because I've got that blues groove where it's down, or more like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, right? Instead of just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? Just a straight groove. If you shuffle it, you're moving that and in between the beats closer to the next one. So 1 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay. Good. So I give you an alternate way to play this that is a little richer sounding and gives you a whole other dynamic on that idea. And it sounds like this. Now I'm going to play out of a full C7 bar chord shape, barring down at the 8th fret and grabbing the 10th fret of the A, 9th fret of the G. Okay. Now you got to get your pinky involved on the B string. So what we're going to do is do this. We're doing the same thing, but we're playing it on a fuller chord and a higher octave, okay? Your pinky is going to add on to the chord at the 10th fret, and then the 11th fret. And that's also adding, right, the 6th and the flat 7. Those are the same notes we're adding down lower here, right? But it has a totally different sound, right? Okay, so you could play it like a rhythm where you're, you know. Where it also works really well is, you know, I hear sort of a riff based on that in a Rolling Stones song called Love in Vain, which is on Guitar Tricks. And it's kind of a slow blues, and they come to a chord, and he's just strumming, and he starts embellishing. Before moving to another chord. And I just love that sound, adding those notes. Right? If I was going to move to the 4 chord, which would be an F, right? Nice little setup there. So there's lots of application for just a simple little move like that, right? Well worth experimenting and playing with. All right? Who's with me? Right on, everybody. Exercise 6, octaves. We haven't talked about octaves in a long time. I thought I'd throw it in here because this is another useful technique that totally relies on some muting. So what an octave is you're basically playing a melody, a single note, but you add the upper octave onto the note to thicken it up. Okay, so I'm going to play this example right here. Okay. Just a simple melody, right? And so it sounds a lot thicker and a lot more sort of in your face when you... Okay. It's the idea. You kind of think, if you're a rock guy, you think Foo Fighters, right? Like that kind of thing, right? That's what they're doing on that. So let's think about this. Starting on a C note, 3rd fret of the A string. And to get to the octave, the trick is to skip the next string, go to the string after, and go up 2 frets. Okay. Now this only works for the lower strings until you get to the D string. Because what happens is, let's say I grabbed a C note on the D string, 10th fret. If I skip the next string and come up to the B string, doesn't work. Okay, I have to go up an extra fret because the B string is tuned flat. Okay, so that's where you have to kind of have your wits about you. If you want to play an octave shape starting on the D string, okay, you got to go up 3 frets on 2 strings up, basically. Okay, same thing on the G string going to the high E string. Okay. And jazz guys like to use sort of those higher string, you know, that kind of thing, right? You'll hear that in jazz a lot, those melodies played with octaves, but kind of a lot higher. In rock, they tend to be a lot more on the lower strings, right? That kind of thing, okay? Let's look a little harder at the muting, because what needs to happen is that we need to, you know, I'm looking to basically, you know, strum just the A string and G string, which is kind of not possible because you're going to be hitting the string in between, in this case, the D string. So that index finger has got to be curled and just resting on the D string, okay? You can't go flat because then it turns it into a chord, right? So you have to sort of lift it up, pat of the finger on the A string, and just make sure that you're flat enough that you're muting that middle string. And then what you can do with the high string, I'm using my pinky. You could also use your ring finger for these, whatever's the most natural. But you can do the same thing on the top strings by just curling that finger and just resting them on the top string. And that way I can strum everything here. And you can see I got my middle finger. I can kind of just rest it on the low string. I could do the trick with my index finger that's fretting the note to kind of just touch the low string. Okay, so you got to be really cognizant of the muting in order to make this sound nice and clean. Okay, and then this particular exercise is changing notes sort of on the offbeats. You've got groups of 3 strums, and I'm using all downstrokes on this. Okay, and then you've got a bunch of strums there on that final G octave. All right. So haven't talked about those in a long time, I feel like. So I feel good to be able to kind of bring that aboard again. And hopefully that's something you might want to play around with. They sound great on acoustic too. And I should say, just as a general note, of course, all these exercises can be applied to the acoustic depending on how demanding the technique is. Sometimes your mileage may vary a little bit, as we'll see on the next one with some bending and vibrato. You can do these things on the acoustic, but bending is a little bit iffy, right? Like we got to get really strong hands and get the bending going on the acoustic. It's a lot harder. So definitely keep that in mind. Let's see, HH. I love these sessions. They complement what I'm learning on guitar tricks, but add some practical aspects, but mostly a sense of community. Awesome. Thank you so much for the kind words. Excellent stuff. Rockin' Reviews and Equipment. Hello. Thank you for this. Thank you for the kind words and joining. All right. Thank you, everybody. Doing all right on a Friday night. Okay. So exercise 7, very simple, but it's just really it's been a long time since we've sort of talked about just the technique of some sliding and vibrato and some bending and vibrato. So I've got this exercise right here. And you can use multiple fingers. This is the fun thing about this exercise. I'm going to start off with my index finger. Okay, 9th fret of the G string. And just slide to the 7th. And then slide back to 9. Okay? If I wanted to clean that up a little bit. So to get used to this a little bit at first, you got to get some dexterity going, right? Because it might be a little bit tough at first to just pick it once, slide down with enough force, and you kind of have to dig in a little bit to make that note on the slide ring out, continue to ring out, because you're not going to pick it again, right? So you kind of have to dig in a little bit and at the same time be accurate, right? Because a lot of times if you dig in, you might just lose where you're going, right? So just go slow with it and just work with it for a couple minutes at a time just to burn it in. Make sure that you're, hitting the note you want to hit, getting to the fret you want to do, and getting used to just the pressure required on that quick little slide. Okay. And what we're going to finish it off with is a little bit of a vibrato. Okay. Now, vibrato, we haven't talked about in a while, but everybody's different on this. And there's not really a wrong answer on this either. Okay. So what I say is sort of go with what feels natural. However, there are things you can do to sort of think about working this into your playing a little bit. And so the first thing that I'd like you to sort of do is think about it as just bending up on that string just a little bit so that you hear the pitch move up a little bit and then bring it down. And the way to practice it is just go really slow and do a bunch of those in a row. And you see I got my thumb up top here because I'm using my index finger for this, okay? So I don't have any support from fingers behind, and I'll get to that in a sec. So you sort of need some leverage somewhere to be able to push that up. If you've got your thumb in the back of the neck, it's still doable. Okay, a little bit of a flick of the wrist there. You see my wrist? Right, I'm pushing up and it's a wrist motion. You want to just like swivel that wrist a little bit, okay? And you can do it if the thumb is in the back. I recommend if you can get the thumb on top because that gives you some leverage, okay? You also want to practice this with your other fingers, right? So let's move to the ring finger because you're going to use all these fingers to slide around the neck, right? So you can use your middle finger and then practice the vibrato. And this time you've got a finger behind there to help you push up, right? That string. Same thing with the ring finger. Now I've got 2 fingers back here. Put it on the string and help bend that thing up. Okay? Go really slow. And what happens is with the practice of that over and over and over again, and getting that motion right, it's burning it into the muscles. It's programming it into the muscles so that you can start to speed it up and it feels natural and smooth. Okay? That's where we're going. But in order to get there, you got to go slow at first, right? Another thing to think about is that on the upper strings, you also have your choice to pull. Instead of pushing up like a bend, you can pull the string down towards the floor and bend it. So a lot of times I'll use a vibrato that's actually pushing towards the floor, right? You see what I'm doing? So I'm just bending the wrist the other way, right? Instead of pushing it up. Now I'm pulling it down, okay? So you sort of have your choice. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I say experiment with each finger, even the pinky, right? Experiment with what feels natural to you and stick with it and work with it, okay? And try to burn it in so that it gets smoother and a little bit faster, just a little bit at a time. That's what this exercise is designed for. It's basic. You can basically do this anywhere on the neck, right? Any string, right? Right? Anywhere, okay? Doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be here. I just chose it arbitrarily, right? Any string, any place on the neck. King 50 helps to keep vibrato in time with the beat. Yeah, you can do that, but it's not necessarily, particularly when you get really going with vibrato. Excuse me. If it's really fast, it's not necessarily in time. It doesn't really need to be in time, but you can certainly do that. Particularly with a slow vibrato, I feel like if it's in time, it probably feels right. Feels groovy a little bit, right? All righty, all right. So the bending exercise is very similar, but we're going to do this instead. Okay. That's what I meant to do. Okay. Adds a layer of complexity because now we're bending up. Okay, so you really need those fingers helping you behind there. Scrunch them in, get on that string. And the key to bending is you want to bend to a note and be in tune. Okay, so in this case, I'm bending from 7. I'm bending up a full step bend, which means 2 frets up. So I want to get this note 2 frets up. So a good thing to do is just reference the note 2 frets up and then work on bending to it and try to match it. Okay. So that's an exercise you can do to just sort of make sure that your bends are in tune a little bit. And then the exercise to put vibrato on a bent note is the same of what we were doing before. I'm going to go back to the 7th fret. And you got a couple choices. So you can push it sharp a little bit up and bring it back down to pitch, or you can just relieve the pressure a little bit, bring it down and push it back up, right? So you can kind of do it on either side of the bent note, right? Or higher. All exercise to experiment and work with stuff like that. Ricky, I find I lose tune with my Floyd, which will give on a bend. Yeah. So on any kind of tremolo system, what happens is it throws the other strings out of tune kind of on a bend, right? So you just have to try and compensate as best as you can with getting it in tune. All right. That's basically it. Right, is you have to get used to working with a tremolo system. The Floyd's really bad for that. But even like on a Strat floating bridge, you bend a note and it'll put the other strings sort of out of tune a little bit, right? Because the whole piece moves. right? So you just sort of have to try to account for it as best you can and learn how to play with that to get it sounding good. Play and drop and no one will notice. There you go. Jazz House, thanks for Bittersweet Symphony. I can use the tips on bending in it, enjoying the song. Excellent, great. That was a fun one to do. Melissa, yes, I knew I needed my hardtail when I saw the Les Paul. Yeah, there's something to be said for the hardtail. You love that bending nice and clean, right? Excellent, excellent. Okay, we're getting there. Exercise 8, string skipping, 3 notes per string. Okay, we're starting to get a little bit more advanced, right? Basically, all this is a B major scale played with 3 notes per string. And the pattern, like because it's string skipping, you don't kind of get a sense of the pattern because of the way it's tabbed out. Starting with 7, 9, and 11 on the low string. But then going up to the D string and playing 3 notes in the pattern up on the D string. So I'm skipping the A string. So it's... Now remember again, it's groups of 3 and I want to keep alternate picking going. So it's equally challenging because I'm going to be down, up, down, and then on an upstroke, I'm going to grab the D string. Up, down, up. Okay? Note on the D string, the frets change, 8, 9, and 11 on the D string. Then I'm going to come back to the string I skipped, which was A, and now that's the same as the first one, 7, 9, 11. Going to 8, 9, 11 on the G string. Okay. Now going back and getting the D string, 8, 9, 11. And then I've got 9, 11, 12 on the high string. Not B string, sorry, B string. Back to 8, 9, 11 on the G, and then 9, 11, 12 on the high string. So now that I've showed you the notes, although it's a little bit jumbled up because we're string skipping, let's go back and just see what the actual pattern is from string to string. And this is one of the easier patterns because it's sort of really symmetrical, so it's easy to remember. We start at the 7th fret, and it's a fret apart on each note. Same thing on the A string. Then you get to the D and G string. It's a semitone apart and then a full step apart. So 1 fret apart and then 2 fret apart. And then on the B string and high E string, you go up 1 fret and it's a whole step apart, which is 2 frets, and then a semitone, which is 1 fret. Right? So if you're going to play this scale pattern, right? It's kind of easy to remember that way. When you throw in the string skipping, it becomes a more challenging exercise. Fudged it coming back. Coming back is always the toughest part, right? So there you go. Cool little exercise. Hopefully you get something out of that. And if anything, just getting a 3 note per string pattern. The other thing you can do, I've tabbed it out for picking, alternate picking, but you can practice your legato with this too, which means 1 pick per string, and you just hammer on the notes. Right? That kind of thing. So it's good to practice your hammer-ons too with that one. Right? Right. Okay. Exercise 9. Double stop idea that you've probably heard before, but pretty cool and lots of applications for this kind of thing. And I'm going to play it here. All right. One more time. Based out of A. Okay. So think about an A chord, right? Part of that A chord, I can pick 2 notes out of it. So I'm getting the 2nd fret of the G and the B string. Playing 2 notes at the same time is called a double stop. Call those double stops, okay? Then what I'm doing is getting into 4th fret of the G string, 3rd fret of the B string. This is sort of out of a shape out of a G major chord. Okay, coming up chromatically, landing up at 6 and 5 of the G and B, which is the A chord again. So you're kind of going A, G, A, sort of chromatically. But the notes are going up the whole time, so it's a cool little shape sound to it, right? You can come back down chromatically, okay? Sort of a country-ish blues kind of idea. You can use these in sort of any kind of genre, right? But you can... Okay, the next part of this, 9B, is the same idea using sixth intervals. Okay, so there's still double stops, but instead of being thirds, we're kind of doing thirds here apart. Up here, I'm using the G string and high E string and going sixth intervals apart. Okay, starting off the A chord, if you think about the A major bar chord and just grab the G string, 6th fret, and then the A note, 5th fret of the high string. Then you've got the same fret on the G and high string, 7th fret, 8th fret, 9th fret. Where you end up here on the 9th fret, is actually out of this particular A bar chord, which is based out of the C shape. Okay, those are two notes out of an A chord. So once again, it's the same idea. You're starting on A, sort of going to G chromatically up to A. But you've got different harmony on that, right? So, okay. Yeah, so I'm using hybrid pick. You don't have to do that. Hybrid pick meaning, especially useful for, playing a note on the G string and then, a skipped string up on the high string, right? Like there's a string in between. So I'll usually pluck, the higher string and pick the lower string. You don't have to do that though. You can actually strum this. But you got to make sure that your fingers curled around properly to mute the B string, right? Because there's no avoiding strumming the B string with it, right? So both of those are totally fine. Cool? With me? All right, final exercise of the night. Hey, thanks for joining, everybody. You've been awesome as usual, and I super appreciate everybody joining each and every week. This is always great stuff. I really enjoy having you here. Last exercise, hammer-on pull-off lick. That's kind of fun, using a Phrygian dominant scale. I've done it over a B. Okay. And so let me just play this lick here. That's the lick. Maybe I should pick each one. I think I messed that up. That's what it is. One more time. Okay, faster. That's what we're going for. Okay, this is based out of the Phrygian dominant scale, which is sort of a exotic scale is what they call it. You can kind of hear. That's the real exotic part of that, because you're basically going from the root, which would be B, up to a flat 2, which is just a semitone, and then up to the major third. Major third, you go 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and then the B note, okay? All right, so you want to hammer on. It's one pick starting on the 1st fret. You got to hammer on, pull off to the open string. And that's sort of the shape of all of those clusters. And you end it off with a slide, 10 to 12. Right? With some vibrato. Yeah, it's sort of the, it's the same one as the Offspring scale, or you hear it in tons of songs, right? To give it that sort of Egyptian exotic sound. So it's a fun one to throw in there if you want to make something sound a little bit spicy, right? Just throw that one in. Basically, Phrygian dominant just means you're in the Phrygian mode, and you've got a major third and a flat 7 in it. So some of the notes are moved around a little bit from that Phrygian mode, which is the third mode of the major scale. And that is for all you guys that are super into advanced theory. So no need to know any of that stuff. Okay. Just learn the exercise if you so desired and play it, and all good. Try to get it sounding as good as you can. All right. Right, Rusty? Totally okay. You know, like you need to say this stuff, and then, you know, one day it'll like light bulb, right? If you hear it enough and you progress enough, it'll all light bulb. All right. And you'll make those connections. But it's not that important right now. All right. Thanks so much. Another one down. Thank you so much for joining. Craig, loving it across the Pacific. Right on, man. Thank you so much. Igor, thank you. Danny, appreciate this session. Lots of great ideas. Excellent. Keep going on guitar tricks, Danny. Awesome. Thank you so much. Jerry, first visit today. Great instruction. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Rusty, as always. Ricky, as always. Peter, thank you. Erica, as always. Rusty. Got to give yourself some credit, all right? Chad, thank you. Zane, thank you, as always. Steve, thank you. Jazz House, excellent. King 50, thank you. Thank you. Daryl, thank you. John, thank you. Melissa, thank you. HH, of course, thank you. Jim Gregory, awesome. All right, everybody. Great. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. Next week, I think we're going to do a finger picking workshop. We'll be back on the acoustic next week, but of course you can apply all of these to the electric as well. James Cody, it's Friday nights like this that convinces me to sign up for another year of guitar tricks. Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate the kind words. I appreciate you coming out, everybody. Take care, all right? Cheers. We'll see you next week.